My name is Daymond John, and I am the CEO and founder of FUBU, as well as one of the managing partners of Coogi, Heatherette, and several other brands, Drunkn Monkey, and several other brands. I don't even remember my first job. I had several jobs. I think my first job was handing out flyers for the Jamaica Coliseum. An opening of a mall in Jamaica, Queens, which ironically I would end up selling my first couple of FUBU hats 10 years later in front of. It all depends because there was several breaks, and I think any accomplishment is not made of just one absolute event. So, one of my first breaks was a gentleman named Ralph McDaniels who had a video show in New York who is still the Bible of hip hop cinematography and videos when they were displayed. He put me on an interview, me and a couple of my partners, as well as Brand Nubians, the rap group. They wore my product in one of their videos coming out, and that just opened so many more doors for me. So those were two of my more significant breaks. There is no average day in the entertainment slash fashion world. One day could be in the office for 3 4 hours, then going to 3 or 4 dinners afterwards, and then the studio with an artist. Another day would be flying between 2 and 3 cities, doing signings and/or radio, popping up on a video set, and the next day I could be in Japan, and working on in the factories, as well as doing some licensing and distribution deals. So there is no day, and that's what is the best thing about it. You can't never get bored. About an hour ago, I think the stress comes, back and forth. You know, I would say to go day and a half without stress is a really long time. Because you just the fate of a lot of people, the fate of a lot of things are in your hands. So you have to make decisions all day long, and a lot of them are stressful. What does hip hop mean to me? Hip hop is a lifestyle. Hip hop is an attitude, um, and it's something that you really cannot put any kind of finger on. And that's one of the most confusing things about our current culture. Because hip hop does not have a color, religion, or demographic. And a lot of times, I think the best thing ever said is rap is something you do, hip hop is something you live. So hip hop is a state of mind, and that's exactly what it is. To sleep, to never sleep. I've lost family and loved ones. A lot of friendships have been jeopardized and are currently jeopardized and always will be because of the position you're in and not knowing what people are around for, and people somehow believe that you change due to how much money you may have in the bank or how much power you may have, and it puts you in very odd positions. So sacrifices are, it could be a very lonely world being in charge of a lot of people and or being a decision maker, as well as time. Your time is, you know it's it's very few time that you have for yourself, and I think that's basically what it is. And of course, being to an extent a public figure, your safety is always in jeopardy to some extent. Goals that I've had 10 years ago. I mean, my goals 10 years ago is exactly what I'm doing today. FUBU's been around 10 to 15 years, and on a very successful and significant level as of 10 years ago. So, we're just happy that we're still in business, and that people respect us, and we always did good by the brand, and that we are a lifestyle brand instead of just a flash in the pan. Because anytime you come into business, you only expect to be around for 3 to 5 years. So of course, having my health and having a future laid out in front of me that looks pretty positive and bright, that's always, I think, the best goals you can have. Well, goals now would be to still continuously do hot clothing brands and stay in the business, and and it's not necessarily about money. It's about success, and pulling people up the ladder and inspiring people, and making a difference in what and how people perceive our culture, my brands, myself. So my goal is now to start probably sharing it more with the masses in regards to helping them have the same mindset that I had 10, 15, 20 years ago. So I think everything you do is a risk, and it all depends on how much you calculate it. Every day you wake up, it's a risk, and every day that you are in business for yourself, there's no guarantees that there'll be a tomorrow. It's just how much do you calculate your risk. Now, I've failed way more than I have succeeded, but my successes basically have paid off, so my failures have fueled them. Of course, I'm a risk taker. I don't wake up every day and punch the clock for somebody else, and I'm always thinking about a new way to invent the wheel and a new way to keep my business and people around me afloat and successful and happy. So I think I'm a risk taker, but this is all I know. I couldn't really tell you at what level I am a risk taker. I'm not a heavy gambler per se, but I try to make the safest bet as possible. My inspirations come from everywhere. It comes from everyday people. It comes from when I go out to the clubs and party and I see what dudes are wearing and where the movement is going. Obviously, the people I love, my kids, people around me, and there's also iconic figures such as Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X, as well as Steven Spielberg inspires me. So I get inspiration from any and everywhere. The biggest thing that turns me off are people that that don't have morals. I can accept anybody for anything they are, but when they can't accept what they do and they portray something different, that is the biggest turnoff per se. Moral characters, and people who make excuses, thieves, liars, lazy people. Those are the type of people that turn me off. Now, if you're lazy and you walk up to me and say, "Hey, I'm good at this, but I'm lazy as hell, so don't call me till 3 in the afternoon," then I know where we stand and we're cool. But other than that, if you're sitting there portraying one thing and doing the other, and I think there's a lack of character in the business as a whole, that is the biggest turnoff. I think the biggest obstacles in business is always to get everybody else on the same page of what you're doing. Whether it be your own staff, whether it be people backing you, people who are your partners, and of course, at the end of the day, it's going to be the consumer. So, biggest obstacles are always that, and that's an everyday challenge, especially when you're dealing with the staff over, 50 to 100 people. To get 100 people to move in unison is a very difficult progress. I don't get many vacations, but my life is a vacation. Sometimes I'll be working in Miami, so I'll slip in time there. Sometimes in New York, I'll go fishing in the morning real quick or something like that. So I take little vacations here and there in my daily life, or I would just totally, be fried as a workaholic. So I take vacations when I take them, whether it's an hour or a day. That's one of the biggest debates now today. How will artists earn money in the future? Now, artists will always have the aspect of earning money through their performances and people come to see them live, but they will no longer earn money the same format in regards to selling records and deals like that. So artists now have to be integrated with a brand. Artists have to understand that they are a brand themselves, but they also have to have a wireless, automotive company, a software company, somebody like that who works to get their property out there. Once their property and their brand is out there, then they can still make money from endorsements, as well as their live performances, as well as brands that they create themselves. So that's exactly how they're going to get paid. And they're going to get paid much more than they ever did in the record world, but they have to get out the same mentality that going to a big label, putting out a record is gonna make them rich, because that's not what's gonna do it. MySpace, incredible. I think that it's proven, and it's showing the way that the whole world is getting smaller, and I think that it also showing that content is the biggest component to today's business. I like to say all the time that earlier on in the century, not this century, but the past century, that owning real estate was the biggest game, and then it came into owning industry such as steel and cotton and things of that nature, and now owning owning properties such as MySpace and Google and information, is the biggest profit making, and this is where we're going. So MySpace is incredible in that aspect. Cell phone, I think they're all the same. I have two. I have a T-Mobile, BlackBerry. I have a what is this? Motorola something, whatever. It shoots videos and this and that. I'm really not a big gadget dude, so my biggest complaint about cell phones, I don't have any. I just use it for what it is at the moment. I wear generally Gucci, but majority of the stuff I wear is myself. I have 9 brands. There's never a need for it. Maybe if there's a Gucci piece I want, um, I can't think of anybody else that I would wear. Zero. I'm really not a computer dude. I mean, I have people who work for me, and they all go to the sites that I need things for, and they come back with the information. I generally read a lot of books. It all depends. If I'm doing a deal with somebody and it's an emotionally based deal, I believe that it should be done face to face. Telephone, rarely. That's really to put together when you're gonna meet here and there. And a lot of times I like the BlackBerry because it's just informative. You can answer and talk to 10, 15 people within 10 minutes and quick information. Let me see. I fish, snowboard, race jet skis, um, four wheeler. I'm more of a nature type of dude, and of course, party and drink. I wouldn't know. I think my greatest strength, I'd have to ask other people. One of my what I think is my greatest strength, and everybody else would object, is that I try to give everybody a good air, and try to let people do what they do best, as well as, unfortunately, be as brutally honest with people. And if I don't think that they are doing the right thing, I'm not gonna hide it. I'm gonna tell them, and let them know how I feel. The same thing will be my weakness. I'll trust a lot of people to do what I think they do best. I will give them a long enough time to work it out, when a lot of people around me would have said, well, you should have fired that person, or you should have hired that person quicker. So, majority of the time my strengths are my weakness. And sometimes I react too quickly, not necessarily in a negative way, but I'm ready to pull the trigger very quickly in regards to business when I should think it out more. But half the time that worked for me, because I'm not going to mess around with it and let the deal go away and or get cold feet. And half the time I shouldn't have necessarily went into it as quickly. My work ethic is to be honest, to work hard, to live up to responsibility and your mistakes. I understand that I don't need a pat on the back in regards to my accomplishments, but my work ethic is the buck stops at me. I'm the CEO, I'm the president, and I'm not going to pass it off to anybody else. Somebody else fails, I obviously didn't do a good enough job looking over them, or I couldn't foresee the fact that they were failing. So the buck stops at me. My view on haters is they exist, and there's a reason for them to exist. And I love when people are haters, because the time that they're spending thinking about me, that's the less time that they're thinking about themselves. I think also, in regards to haters, they're one of the best forms of flattery, as well as the best form of advertisement, because a hater will sit there and bring the attention of what you're doing to a lot of different people because they're hating about it. If somebody sits there and talks highly about what you're doing to a lot of other people, well, those people sometimes think, well, he has some vested interest, or why is he telling it? But if a hater is doing it, a hater is doing it in a negative way. And usually that hater has the same format about everybody successful around them. And basically it's like advertising. So I love haters in that sense. My current projects right now we're working on is expanding the Coogi line, which we relaunched about 3-4 years ago, as well as my biggest project is finally I'm deciding to write a book on the true life of FUBU and how it was growing up and why there was a reason for FUBU, and in regards to the power that FUBU created in myself and a lot of people in a generation in regards to branding and corporations. The book is called Display of Power. And what I've decided to do is, instead of doing all the speaking engagements that I did across the country, I've decided to put it all down in one book, all the knowledge that I feel is needed to progress in this world and to have that vision to get over these hurdles and know what you're going to have to face to be successful. And that's my biggest project right now, and I'm pushing that this year. I think the future of hip hop is a good portion of the future of popular culture in general. Hip hop is now it's a global thing. It is embedded in kids anywhere from 5 to people at 55 right now. So I think hip hop is just popular culture in all aspects. Everything from music to movies to to homes, to everything you're buying, purchasing, thinking about, dancing to is just a part of our lives now. It's a soundtrack to our life right now. Well, there's nothing that I do that I only do for one shot. My industries that I'm going into is, as in regards to an author, this is my first step into it, but I'm going to now go further into it and not only display a power, but create a brand around informative and motivational products that will hopefully be timeless. FUBU will always be the proudest thing I've achieved. It's something that there was no blueprint to. It's something that inspired a generation. It's something that changed the face of business. It's something that created incredible revenues for thousands of individuals. FUBU will always be my biggest business accomplishment, no matter what else I do. I think I'd like to be remembered as somebody who who created a space or helped create a certain space that became uplifting to a certain demographic of people, not necessarily just African American or just kids, or it's the same hip hop kind of blur that we have, and somebody who, when he dealt with his people, was as fair as possible.